If I only had a brain, a heart, a home, the noise. I think that's how it goes. I just watched The Wizard of Oz, 1939, Victor Fleming directed, well, eventually Victor Fleming directed movie starring Judy Garland, uh, Ray Bolger, not Buddy Ebsen, Frank Morgan, many others. What's her name? Who did The Wicked Witch of the West? Um, yeah, it's still one of those sort of stunning movies that is quite bizarre, quite odd. Um, it's one of those things that you look at and think this is sort of the peak or a peak of kind of like the American studio system, where you have this great confluence of expertise of from the actors, someone like Judy Garland, who's just her own special effect with her singing of when she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow at the beginning. We're still in the so-called kind of realistic part of the film, but she is so kind of raw and emotional and captivating that way. She kind of transports you already, and you're still in Kansas. um, and we get all these kind of the great vaudevillian actors. You get the great, you know, the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodsman, the lion, the Cowardly Lion, all just acting up a storm in a kind of a very heightened um, fantasy way. I mean, in some ways, the artificiality of this kind of older kind of acting style actually really melds well with the kind of bizarre fantasy of Oz. Um, and there's all the set design. There's the beautiful, beautiful kind of backdrops. You have this. You're in studio, so you have painted backdrops that are kind of representing, and it just kind of adds to that artificiality, that kind of bizarreness of the whole thing. Um, you know, and these were really hardworking people. You can tell all the way through hardworking. Um, so in some ways, also we're talking about a studio system that kind of ground and you know harmed many of these people. Judy Garland being the most notable one, and selling a story of there's no place like home, yet in a system, in a kind of Hollywood dream of let's leave the farm and go to Hollywood and become a movie star and in magic. But that how hard and hard won, and how difficult, and how unicorn like these people were, and exactly how unearthly talented they were, in their own particular slots. So it's one of those movies of, it's a children's movie, um, but it's also just it kind of echoes, and there's so many lines. It's like, ignore the ignore the man behind the curtain. I have a feeling I'm not in Kansas anymore. You know, um, what was that? Oh, there's a thing at the end that just choked me up. Remember, it's not your heart. How much your own heart. It's how many people love you. That is the true test of a person, of a true measure of a man's worth. Which it's like it's like words to both live by, but also to be like, you're selling us, lots of stuff here, Hollywood, and I should be careful. Um, but yeah, just like, this was, it's one of those ones. It's nice to kind of revisit with fresh eyes every once in a while, and just that amazing kind of time capsule quality of all these people who and a whole different world and a whole kind of different mindset, but how it actually still kind of resonates for us today, um, in a way maybe a lot of the more contemporary contemporary films, films that were more grounded, wouldn't work today, would be more ossified, would be less emotionally resonant. Whereas this is definitely, it's one of those modern myths now. It is a modern myth. I think Frank Oz, when he was writing his books, talked about like he wanted to write, a fairy tales for America versus all the European ones that, someone like Disney would be making. And indeed, this got off the ground because I think of the success of Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But yeah, that idea of the American myth, which is cool. Yeah, yeah. So that I really enjoyed. Surprise, surprise. But it's nice when you watch an old movie that you watched as a kid, and it still resonates with you, but in different ways, in different fruitful ways. So yeah, yeah. The Wizard of Oz. We're off to see the Wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.